We are back yet again on the thiccmaninc podcast to give you our Week 13 predictions. And folks, there may be a lot of uncertainty in the world. The sky may be falling down, cats and dogs may be dancing in the street, Shiva might be dancing, preparing to destroy the universe. But we yet again have found ourselves here recording this podcast. And we are going to give you a 100% accurate prediction for the upcoming week. Starting things off, the revitalized Pittsburgh Steelers head to the ATL to take on the Falcons. And look, Marcus Mariota may be scoring more fantasy points by week than Lamar Jackson since week 3. Nothing really big there. Their offense might be a little bit zesty, a little bit steamy, might have a few pieces, but they're not standing up to the revitalized Steel Curtain. TJ Watt is here to lead the Steelers to a winning record. They can win games against similarly talented teams. We saw that on Monday night, and we're going to see it again here. The Steelers will dominate the Falcons. It will be a defensive masterclass from Watt and the Steelers defense, and Tomlin is going to inch his way closer to that ever illustrious 500 record.
Yeah, I made the prediction last week that the Steelers were going to start to turn things around. TJ Watt has been infused back into that team. He has elevated that locker room. Since TJ Watt's return, they're now 2-1, above 500, and they are going to save Mike Tomlin's above 500 streak. The Falcons don't have much going for them. The best player on their offense is Kyle Pitts, who for some reason they refuse to use this season, is not playing. The Falcons defense is one of the worst in the NFL. They're 2-4 over their last 6 games. Probably should be 1-5 if it wasn't for DJ Moore taking off his helmet after he scored that miraculous touchdown. So the Falcons are also not playing well recently. They're not a great offense. They're not a great defense. And the Steelers, I think George Pickens is going to put it together. He's going to have a big game. Deontay Johnson may have a big game. Najee Harris may or may not play. Who knows? And TJ Watt's probably good for at least 6 TFLs, 2 sacks, something along those lines. I think the Steelers are going to win the game.
Truly bad numbers. And no one cares if Najee Harris plays, because we don't want to see him run sideways, make 3 juke moves, and gain half a yard. On to a game between two forces who we thought were going to be dominant, but both disappointed us this season. The Broncos are off to Baltimore to face Lamar Jackson and the Ravens. And you look at the Broncos, they're a disappointment. They may be putting things together a little bit. They may have 20 players at Russ's birthday party. That doesn't matter. Sierra paid those guys. That team is still in shambles. They've got a terrible coaching staff. Their offensive personnel is not there. Their line's not great. Their defense is starting to slowly let up. But on the other sideline, you've got the Ravens, who have blown 4 games, which they led late, which they easily could have won. They don't not appear to be a team which can finish at the moment. And as we know, the Broncos love getting into these one-score games. They've got one of the best, if not the best, defenses in the NFL. And while that defense may be waning, it's still going to be enough to hinder the Ravens' offense, which is fairly one-dimensional. So, I have a very tight game here. And as a matter of fact, I'm going to pick the Denver Broncos, who I just insulted, to pull off an upset victory on the road against the Ravens. Will it help their overall standing? Probably not. Will Russ have a good game? Probably not. Will it matter in the grand scheme of things because neither of these teams is doing anything in the postseason? Definitely not.
Now, the Ravens, they did find a way to lose last week against the Jaguars, but to me, watching that game was more indicative of the Jaguars finally coming around and being what we thought they were going to be at the beginning of the season, with Trevor Lawrence having a good game, a couple of their receiving weapons that they picked up in the offseason stepping up in a big way. Zay Jones had a great game. They lost Travis Etienne and still were able to be productive. So I felt like that really said more about the Jaguars, although it does show the Ravens' general inconsistency. But when you're playing the Broncos and how bad this offense is, it's going to be an easy victory for you. I mean, they're 0.3 points away from averaging just 2 touchdowns a game. Their offense is pathetic. Their defense, to speak to your point, is incredible, and I feel bad for them at this point. They've got this horrible offense to overtime 3 times this season. That is incredible that that a team has made it to overtime 3 times when you're averaging 14 points a game. It sucks. That defensive talent, their secondary, that front 7 is being wasted. They even traded away Bradley Chubb and haven't missed a beat. But at the end of the day, because of how bad that offense is, I still expect the Ravens to win.
I mean, you say that like the Ravens offense has been anything special. 27 points against a mediocre, best bad in reality Jacksonville Jaguars defense, not good. 13 points against the Carolina Panthers, really? That's a dynamic offense? They're not going to be able to get away from the Broncos. At bare minimum, it's a close game, and given the Ravens' track record in close games, seems like a given.
Well, every single game they've played in this season has been close. I mean, they're still above 500, leading the AFC North, so.
Leading the AFC North ain't that big an achievement this year, son.
That's true.
On to the Windy City, where we see Justin Fields and the Chicago Bears. Is Justin Fields playing, by the way? I figure I might as well ask you. I
don't think he's playing.
You don't think he's playing?
I don't know if I feel like they haven't made a decision yet.
There is a tremendous amount of uncertainty on this nice, windy, sunny Friday afternoon. If Justin Fields plays, he will be able to beat Aaron Rodgers. And let's be honest, Rodgers is going to force himself to play. He's going to make himself seem like some sympathetic hero. Oh, I'm toughing through this horrible injury. I got a broken thumb. I got erectile dysfunction. I need to get on my ayahuasca. I'm just a warrior. I'm getting through. I'm like Brett Favre. In reality, you are nothing like Brett Favre. You never stole from the state of Mississippi. You're not a real man. You don't know what it's like to lead a team to the Super Bowl as a grizzled and seasoned vet. You did it as a young buck and have never been able to recapture that since. Aaron Rodgers is a big old phony, and the only thing which is going to save that phony this fine week is the health status of Justin Fields. If Fields is on the field, they are going to run all over the Packers. If not, Aaron Rodgers will probably find a way to win over the Bears' backup, because as we know, that offense is bad and that defense is terrible. As a matter of fact, Aaron Rodgers probably have like 300 yards and 4 touchdowns. People say, oh, he's back. He's still the best quarterback. He's still this. He's still that. He ain't nothing. Aaron Rodgers is nothing. He is getting saved. He's lucky. He's going to win this week, but it's not going to be a good win.
You know, as much as I have joined kind of the Aaron Rodgers hate brigade this season, I'm not his biggest fan. I'm not a fan of what their offense can do. The Bears' defense is just not good. I mean, they've lost games this season, and when their offense scored 32, 29, and 30 points. Their defense doesn't stop the other team's offense. And with the Chargers, Christian Watson has finally emerged after all that pre-draft hype and all the people applauding the Packers for finally taking a receiver. He's finally stepped up and made big plays in that offense. That is what it's going to take to beat this Packers defense, especially if Justin Fields isn't playing.
His biggest play was when Jordan Love was on the field. That's the issue.
He's made when he caught 3 touchdown passes in the game, Aaron Rodgers was the one throwing him the ball, and Darnell Mooney's injured for the Bears. So when you have Chase Claypool and then a bunch of nothing, Chase Claypool's been with the team for, 3 weeks now. Justin Fields is not going to be as effective as a runner if he plays due to the injury to his shoulder, and whoever their backup is not going to be that effective because he's not the runner that Justin Fields is. So I expect the Packers to win, despite how bad they've been over the course of the season.
If they don't win, I think we should just exile them to the XFL. This is a game they have to beat. They got to beat the Bears' backups and their terrible defense. Woohoo. Staying in the AFC North, though, we've got the Detroit Lions hosting the Jacksonville Jaguars, a battle of the big cats. And one of these cats is much bigger than the other. One's better coached, one's better manned, one's got a better offensive line, one's got better weapons, and one plays in Florida. The Detroit Lions are going to win this game. They are going to beat the Jaguars. I don't care if the Jaguars upset the Ravens. They're on the road. They're in Detroit. Lawrence is going to have another good game, but it's not going to be enough to outscore the Detroit offense. Jared Goff is him. He is playing for his job. He's playing for his life. He's trying to stop the Lions from drafting another quarterback to replace him, and he's going to succeed. The Lions are on fire as of recently. They're winning games. They're beating decent teams, and now they're going to beat another decent team. Dan Campbell is the man. He owns you, and you still haven't apologized after he manhandled the Giants. What an embarrassment that must have been.
Well, I'm going to finally come down from my Dan Campbell hate train a little bit to say the Lions have looked very solid again. They're staying in these close games. I still think it's a bit suspect that there's been no progress made on the defensive end over Dan Campbell's tenure as the head coach, but I'm not really going to talk about that. The offense has looked incredible. I think it really speaks to how important Amon-Ra St. Brown is to that offense and just how good he is that when he was injured, they looked back to their former Detroit Lions selves. They looked like the 2-win Detroit Lions. They looked like the Detroit Lions who were the laughing stock of the NFL. But with him reinserted, they look great on offense. They're back to putting up a bunch of points a game. They're back to scaring defenses. So I'll applaud them. They look a lot better. And if Jameson Williams comes back, they could have a really dynamic passing attack with those two. Jameson was my favorite receiver coming out of the draft, right next to Garrett Wilson. But when it comes down to this game, the Jaguars, as I mentioned earlier in this podcast, I think they finally put things together against the Ravens. Their offense finally looked competent. Their defense was able to, limit the Ravens enough to lead them to a victory. So I think the Jaguars are actually going to pull this one out. I won't be surprised if the Lions win because both these teams are finally starting to turn the corner on their season to where we expected them to be at the beginning of the year.
Turn the corner is a bit bold, and let's be honest, most people put the Jaguars in like the 6 to 7 win range. They might be on pace for that, they might not be, but look, they're too inconsistent. Like every other week, they lose a game, they win a game, they lose a game, they win a game. They're a coin. You don't know if they're going to do, but you know they're probably not going to live up to expectations. I have no expectations for the Jaguars. I'm still probably going to be disappointed. And speaking of disappointment, disappointment. We are all very disappointed that a certain somebody will be suiting up for the Cleveland Browns this week. He's back, ladies and gentlemen, to face his former team in the Houston Texans. Deshaun Watson is making his debut and attempting to save the Browns season. Will he? No. As we've seen, Russell Wilson, great quarterback, right? Some people say he's top 10. Said he was top 10, excuse me. Those people bozos, but functional quarterback. Goes to a new offensive system, struggles mightily as a new player. Tom Brady goes to a new offensive system, initially struggled. Now Deshaun Watson, after not playing football for 2 years because of various on and off the field issues, he is in a new offensive system who has just allowed him to start practicing this week. He is going to struggle, and the only good thing about this game for Watson is he's playing one of the worst teams in the NFL. A team with no offensive identity, with no defensive identity, with no identity whatsoever. The only identity they have is tanking for the future. But still, home crowd, packed Texans Stadium, everyone against him, too rusty. I just don't think Deshaun Watson's going to be able to do anything. I am picking with my heart on this one. He's going to score 10 points with the Browns offense. There are going to be chance for Jacoby Brissett to come back. And I think the Texans will be able to do just enough with Kyle Allen to get the win over the Cleveland Browns.
Yeah, it's no coincidence that NFL scheduled the Texans as the game Deshaun Watson was going to come back. That was clearly a setup. And the Texans, they want to embarrass him for what they did to him the previous season, not playing at all, and then with the, of course, controversy. Before that controversy even came out, he was talking about wanting a trade to get out of that organization. Before all that even happened, the Texans did not like him. There's a lot of players and a lot of people in that organization that really want to beat them, and they are going to put their best foot forward to win. They're going to press the pause button on their season tank for either Bryce Young or Will Anderson, and they are going to find a way to win this game. And call me crazy, I've seen a lot of people, and Isaiah, you've spoke to what I'm about to say. I've seen a lot of people think that Deshaun Watson is going to all of a sudden be this fantasy god and put up big numbers. But you really expect that after taking 2 years off of the sport? I just don't see that happening. He hasn't even been able to practice this season because he's been suspended. So on a week of practice, not playing in 2 years, I don't see him all of a sudden throwing for 350 yards and having another 60 rushing yards with 3 passing touchdowns and a rushing touchdown. I just don't see it. I think the Texans are going to be ready to go, and I think they're going to beat the Browns.
Now, by any chance, you know if the Texans have a turf field?
I have no idea.
We will Google that. If they do, you know what I'm praying for. Right through the ACL. On to Minnesota. And the Vikings are taking on the Mike White New York Jets. The Jets have a phenomenal defense. They've got decent receivers. And they've got the hottest quarterback in all football who is loved by all his teammates. And of course, Zach Wilson sitting on the bench pondering how it got so bad. Well, got so bad because he's a spoiled rich white kid. But on the Vikings sideline, Minnesota's on fire. They beat a winning team in primetime, something which they never really are able to do. Kirk Cousins appears to be a functional quarterback at the moment. They got the best receiver in football. They got a very good running back. Their defense is all right, but you don't need to be much of a defense to hinder the Jets. And most importantly, the game is at 1 p.m. So I'm giving this one to the Vikings, to 1 p.m. Kirk, to the home team. And I would be shocked if the Jets pulled off an upset, although I do believe in some magic from Mike White.
Well, I think there's a major asterisk next to that, prime time Kirk Cousins finally got a W, because when you look at the Patriots' record this season, they've beaten Mitchell Trubisky, Jared Goff, Jacoby Brissett, Zach Wilson twice, and Sam Ellinger. So
they were above 500. That's all that matters.
I don't care, but look at the quarterbacks the Patriots are beating.
You want to talk about
the
Bills game? If
they played more competent quarterbacks, they wouldn't be above 500.
You want to talk about the Bills game?
Let's be real here.
Let's be real. The Vikings are a good team. Stop hating.
Well, the Jets are for real too, and with Mike White as their starter, they're even better. They're finally able to at least function on offense. With Zach Wilson leading the way, they were a bottom 5 offense in the NFL at pretty much every single category, except when Breece Hall was actually healthy. They were a very effective rushing team. And Mike White knows how to get the ball out, and he knows how to perform under pressure. If he flopped last week and didn't perform at all, he would have been out of a job and may never have gotten another chance to be a starting quarterback in the NFL again. Unlike Kirk Cousins, who doesn't perform in the prime time. And this game is played at 4:25 p.m., not 1 p.m. We're not
Are you sure about that? Because I'm looking at the website and it's saying 1 p.m.
Never mind. It's played at 1 p.m. So we are going to see 1 p.m. Kirk. I was wrong about that. Either way, I still believe in my prediction. Mike White knows how to play under pressure. The defense is elite, a top 5 defense in the NFL with a phenomenal secondary. Justin Jefferson isn't going to be able to dominate the entire game. He's not going to be able to take over. And I think the Jets are going to wind up pulling out the victory.
You're playing into the memes. Mike Cracker is not going to have another 300-yard passing game. It's just not going to happen. I'd like him as much as the next next guy, he wants to be like Taylor Heinicke. He just can't be. He's not as good as Taylor Heinicke. And he's going to do better than Zach Wilson, but doing better than Zach Wilson ain't nothing. He ain't playing like he played last week, this week against the Vikings. You just got to accept that. The Vikings are winning this one. You are a hater. You don't believe in them. You don't think Kirk Cousins is him. Kirk Cousins is him. You'll never be him. You'll never have a quarterback who's him, and you just got to live with that. On to the quarterback you do have. Daniel Jones stinks. He's a terrible passer of the football. Bottom 5, certainly bottom 10 passer, who is saved by his ability to run in a straight line. On the other sideline, you've got the Washington football team Commanders or Redskins, who keep unveiling disrespectful memorabilia about Sean Taylor. This game is going to be awful. It's on MetLife turf, so someone's going to get hurt. Probably Chase Young again, and we're going to see the Giants and Commanders scrap it out. I'm going to pick the Giants, not only because of Saquon Barkley, because they've got good defense, decent coaching, but if they lose, it will be solely on the shoulders of Daniel Jones, who is inferior to both Taylor Heinicke and to Mike White.
Well, the Giants' season overall has been pretty devastated by injury. It's been, over the last few games, I think that's really hindered their ability to be a more competitive team. But you take a look at some of the guys who may return this week. Evan Neal's supposed to come back and play. That's going to help their offensive line out a lot. Azeez Ojulari is supposed to come back and play. That's really going to help their pass rush. And I think they're going to be able to pull out the victory with these two guys returning to the team. Two of the most important players on both sides of the ball. So those guys returning, the Commanders have looked good, and there's a real chance the Giants don't win because the Commanders are kind of on fire, and Taylor Heinicke has been leading that offense to be much better than it was with Carson Wentz. But, for the sake of it, I got to go with my Giants, picking a little bit with my heart here, especially if those two guys that I mentioned are actually able to be healthy and play.
I will enjoy drinking your tears, and I will be drinking them mightily this Sunday afternoon. On to the city of brotherly love, where the Eagles take on the Tennessee Titans. And to me, this game revolves around the running attack. And while Jordan Davis is an absolute freak of nature who can single-handedly transform a game, he is not playing. He's returned to practice. He's not going to be 100%. He's probably not going to make it on the field. These things don't just go away. On the other sideline, you got Derrick Henry, who loves going up the middle, pounding it out, getting scrappy, getting feisty, and is looking to pull off a little bit of an upset against what is a fairly weak run defense, considering how strong they are everywhere else. The only way the Titans win this game is by running the ball, and they are set up to run the ball very well. I think it's going to be a close one. We know the Eagles' offense is going to get a decent amount of points. We also know the Titans' defense is going to get boat rates. They're not going to give up 40. They're not going to give up 35. And it'll be a tight-scoring affair, particularly if the ball stays on the ground and the clock keeps going. I'm going to side with the Titans on this one, partially because I hate the Eagles, entirely because I hate the Eagles, frankly, and pray that Derrick Henry has a monster game and humiliates the Birds.
Oh, I'm going to come down from the position that the Titans are a bad football team, but I am still a very strong believer in the fact that they are mid. They don't have enough on the offensive side of the ball to get the job done. When Derrick Henry does not have things going, their passing attack is nothing special. Although, it looked like Traylon Burks at least is somewhat living up to the first round hype over the last couple games. And on the Eagles side of things, their offense is just too talented with Jalen Hurts, Miles Sanders, Gainwell, and Boston Scott as guys they rotate through the backfield. Then they have A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith. That's a lot for the defense to handle. And Jordan Davis is going to get some snaps back this week. So he's going to be in on some of those key, maybe 3rd and 3s where the Eagles are going to get a stop on Derrick Henry and they're going to get the ball back to their offense. So I think the Eagles are going to pull this victory out. I'm not a big Titans fan. I'm not a big fan of Titans fans, although I still do love Derrick Henry. I don't think they're going to win this one.
Agree to disagree. On to LA. And we've got the Rams facing off against Seattle Seahawks. And I heard a little bit of a proverb from Alexa this week. When asked by its owner, Alexa, who's winning the Super Bowl? She responded, well, the Rams are really game changers. Yeah, they make you change the channel whenever they're on TV. The Rams stink. They're one of the worst teams in the NFL. They're hard to watch. They have no offensive identity. Their defensive identities have failed to live to expectations. And they're going against a competently run Seahawks team who truly believes in themselves. I am picking the Seahawks to win this one. Not much needs to be said. Stafford's a bum. McVay's a bum. Ramsey's a bum. Cooper Kupp, probably a bum. And Donald, it's still alright, but he's on thin ice.
Well, the one thing I do have to say about the Seahawks is that their defense has kind of started to unravel again after they had that streak where they looked very good. But when you're playing the Rams, not much of that matters. I mean, Cooper Kupp's out, Aaron Donald's out, Jalen Ramsey at this point in his career is not looking like even close to a top 10 corner in the NFL. So there's not much going for the Rams on either side of the ball. Their offense is completely incompetent. I'd say with all their injuries, they're probably the least talented offensive group in the NFL. So the Seahawks should be able to dominate this game. game. Kenneth Walker, because Aaron Donald's not in there, should be able to go for 100. And this defense should be able, and the Seahawks defense should get a turnover or two with what the Rams have on offense.
No one really cares about this game. It's not going to be particularly interesting. But a game which everyone should be watching is the Dolphins traveling to San Francisco, going from east to west coast to take on the 49ers. And this is a very important game to me as someone who enjoys Tua Tagovailoa more than my co-host here. If Tua can protect his undefeated streak as a starter, which he is undefeated in games he starts and doesn't get a horrible concussion this year, he's 8-0 against the 49ers, against a great defense, against a talented offense. If he can do that, I think he's got a very good argument to be in the MVP conversation. I think he's certainly going to be able to take the Dolphins to maybe the 2 seed, maybe the 3 seed, maybe the 1 seed in the NFC. The issue is the Bills being in front of them. This is a game which we will know if Tua Tagovailoa truly is him or not. If he has a bad game, so what? He's still a top 10 quarterback, but if he can go out there and perform against the 49ers, I think it'll be a phenomenal showing. And I think he might. He's got it in him. He's got a decent offensive line to stop Bosa from tearing his head off. He's got great wide receivers who can get open downfield, particularly with the 49ers cornerbacks who are focused on stopping the run more than anything. And he's got a great head coach who truly believes in him. So I'm going to give this one to the Dolphins. I think Miami goes on the road all the way out to California and gets a win over the 49ers.
Well, this is going to be one of the two most exciting games this weekend, and the 49ers they're probably the most talented team in the NFL outside of the quarterback position when you look at all the talent they have on defense and all the talent they have across the board on offense. But take a look at what happened last time the 49ers played an elite passing attack. Patrick Mahomes put up 44 points on them. The Dolphins, they have the second best passing attack in the NFL, and it's even better when Tua's back there because they played 3 games without him. So I think the story of this game is going to be the 49ers passing defense versus Tua, Tyreek Hill, and Jalen Waddle. I lean towards Tua here with what they've been able to do this season with those two receivers. It's not going to matter that the 49ers are leading the NFL in points allowed. It's not going to matter they're leading the NFL in rushing defense. It's going to be Tua and those two receivers versus that secondary. And I'm going to lean towards the Dolphins and Tua and what they're able to do on the offensive side of the ball. Also because Mike McDaniels knows Jimmy Garoppolo better than any other head coach in the NFL, besides maybe Kyle Shanahan and maybe you want to say Bill Belichick, but I'm leaning the Dolphins on this one.
On to, I assume, what you were calling the other most interesting game of the week, where the Chiefs head on over to Cincinnati to take on Joe Burrow. And I only need one word to tell you what's going to happen this game. Vengeance. Retribution even. That's 2 words. That's 3 words. But still, the Chiefs are going to revenge upon the Bengals what they had happen to them last season. They were humiliated late in the year. They were humiliated in the postseason. Mahomes threw a bad interception late, and he cost his team the chance to return to the Super Bowl. That ain't happening this week, son. Bengals are about to get blasted by the Chiefs. The Chiefs offense is better. It's more complete without Tyreek Hill. They've got better running backs. They've got a balanced passing attack. They've got the greatest tight end in all football, bar none, and they are going to exact divine retribution upon the Bengals secondary who previously slowed them down. I don't care that Jamar Chase is back with Joe Burrow. He's overrated. I don't care that the Bengals might be finding themselves a little bit of offensive identity. It doesn't matter. They're not going to be able to keep up with the Chiefs. The Chiefs are the best team in football, and they are going to spank the Bengals.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree. I mean, the Chiefs were embarrassed twice last year by the Bengals, late in the season and in the playoffs, and that's just not going to happen. Patrick Mahomes was struggling last year. He was throwing some passes we usually didn't see him throw. He was pushing the ball down the field. He wasn't taking his checkdowns, and he just made some idiotic decisions. This year, that is not the case. He's leading and running away with the MVP discussion. He's making smart decisions. He's picking apart defenses. He's making crazy throws when he needs to, and the Chiefs defense is also still solid. And on top of that, Juju's actually back, adding to the crazy depth the Chiefs have at receiver. And then on the Bengals side of things, Joe Mixon and Jamar Chase sound like they're going to be back. So neither team is going to have an excuse, but because of what we've seen from Patrick Mahomes this season, I don't really see them losing to anyone. Every single game they're in, I'm picking them to win, and then something miraculous has to happen in that game, like when they lost to the Colts, missed extra point and dropped Travis Kelce touchdown. That doesn't happen every week. Chiefs are going to win.
The Bengals will have excuses because they're a bunch of whiny losers who can't stand the fact their team is being incredibly overrated, might not even make the playoffs. On to LA, or should I say LV, as the Raiders face off against the Chargers, a big old game of disappointment on a nice Sunday afternoon. Both these teams have had injury issues, both have had quarterbacks failing to live up to expectations, and both might be in for a coaching change once the season ends. Unfortunately for the Raiders, they've got a better quarterback, or they've got a worse quarterback, they've got a worse receiving room at the moment, and they certainly have a worse head coach. So I'm going to give this one to the Chargers, not really much to say. The Chargers are going to hold on to that final playoff spot, and it's just going to be a big old MAC game. Vegas ain't doing nothing besides scoring some points and not win.
Both teams have pretty bad defenses. Both teams have very good running backs. Both teams have two very good receivers. The only difference that this game really comes down to is who has the better quarterback, and that to me, that's clearly Justin Herbert. Derek Carr hasn't had the greatest season, and Justin Herbert's one of the 10 best quarterbacks in the NFL. And he also has his number one receiver back who's slowly gotten back in the swing of things over the last 3 games when he came off that hamstring injury. So with Keenan Allen back on the field, Austin Eckler being great all season, Justin Herbert being Justin Herbert, I'm picking the Chargers to win, but I do love the Raiders and I love Devonta Adams, so if they win, that'd be cool too.
Alright, Devonta Adams, I'm still on over him being a Packer, truly a scumbag. The only good thing about him is that he left Green Bay. On to Sunday Night Football, where the Dallas Cowboys face off against the Indianapolis Colts. And look, Jeff Saturday has had his boys in Indianapolis in more games than he should. I'm pretty sure everyone thought the Colts were going to get blown out 3 straight games. In reality, they've had 3 straight dogfights, 2 of which the Colts weren't quite able to pull out under Saturday, but I digress. They're probably going to lose this one. They're just worse all over the board than the Cowboys. Cowboys got better receivers, better running back tandem, better quarterback, better defense, better pass rush. It's not going to be close. If Saturday makes this one a dogfight, though, you've got to show him a little bit of respect to the coach.
Well, yeah, but the Colts, it was a pretty pathetic display of time management at the end of last week's game, letting 30 seconds run off the clock when you have 3 timeouts left and you're driving down the field to score. I will never understand that, especially when I saw that happen. And the Cowboys, like you said, they're better pretty much everywhere, all over the field. Better running backs, better quarterback, better receivers. They have the best pass rush in the NFL by a pretty wide margin. They have one of the best scoring defenses in the NFL. The Colts they don't have the talent to keep up with this Cowboys team and how good the Cowboys are in defense. So it should be an easy victory, and it's really frustrating. We're not getting to watch the 49ers play the Dolphins at 4 p.m. and then watch the Chiefs and Bengals play at 8 p.m. because Jerry Jones, he's going to get that primetime game for himself.
Master of puppets. On to the Monday Night Football game where the Saints take on the Buccaneers. And look, the Saints offense is in shambles. Things have been going wrong. Injuries have happened. People have lost their jobs due to those injuries. Their defense, meh. Their talent, not there. On the other side, they've got Brady and the Buccaneers, who clearly is not comfortable with the changes made to the Buccaneers offense in the offseason and is still struggling. Both these teams are under 500, but the Saints are only 1 game back of the Buccaneers in terms of record, I believe. That being said, that ain't changing this week. As a matter of fact, it's not changing at all. They're not going 2 games back. They're tying this game. You want to know why? Because Jameis Winston is chomping at the bit. He is ready. He is going to get an opportunity, whether it be to injury or whatnot, to get in this game and take on his former team in the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, to face off against his peer, Tom Brady, his equal. 2 men who are in the greatest quarterback of all time conversation. And Jameis is going to rise to the occasion. He is going to go blow for blow with Brady. He's going to face off against the Buccaneers defense and be a gunslinger. Be a man. Let us not hang low. And he is going to pull out an upset tie in this game. We are going to go all the way through overtime. Both teams will kick a field goal on their opening possession of overtime, and then after that, they will not score any points. I'm predicting this game ends in a 27-27 tie.
If it winds up being a tie, that would be pretty cool. I wouldn't be shocked with how these teams have played this year. Neither team has looked spectacular on offense. Neither team has looked spectacular on defense. But I am going to lean the Buccaneers on this one because it seems like I don't think they're going to quite get to what they used to be this season on the offensive side of the ball, but they're getting closer to it. Chris Godwin is finally back to health. I think he had 70 targets. He looked phenomenal last week against the Browns. Although they failed to pull it off, the game did go to overtime. I'm going to lean the Buccaneers in this one. I think they have more talent on offense. Their defense is overall better than the Saints defense, and I think Tom Brady is going to get the victory. He's still going to be going to the playoffs this year. I don't see the Saints winning. If it's a tie, cool, but I'm not going to go ahead and predict it.
W's won't be eaten, but a nice old T will be. That has been our predictions for the Week 13 of the NFL season. Let us know what we got wrong down in the comment section below. Please come back here after the fact and tell us how terrible we are. And for those wondering, yes, we accurately predicted, in fact, down to the final score, that the Bills would beat the Patriots. We are just choosing not to include it this week.
And also, guys, thank you for all the support on the Manuel Acho video. I think it's at like 7,000 views right now, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, the diehard faithful are sticking around to the end of the podcast. All right.